Every city has a street that was built to hold 100,000 people. The city around it has 40,000. Every city has a street that goes nowhere, that just stops, at a building that was supposedly constructed after the road was laid. In 14 different cities, I found the same pattern. The same oversized boulevard, the same dead end, the same 1870s survey map that doesn't match what was actually built. The city plans are in the archives, and the more of them you read, the less sense any of it makes. Washington, D.C. was designed with grand avenues that made no sense for the city that existed in 1791. The boulevards are enormous. Pennsylvania Avenue, Massachusetts Avenue, the diagonal avenues radiating from the Capitol and the White House like spokes from a wheel. Pierre-Charles L'Enfant designed this city when Washington, D.C. had fewer than 3,000 residents. He designed it for a capital city of millions. Not forward-thinking, not optimistic. He designed streets that were physically impossible to fill for at least a century. For most of the 1800s, Pennsylvania Avenue, now one of the most famous streets in the world, was a muddy, rutted road lined with boarding houses and taverns, bordered by empty lots, running through what was essentially a swamp. The grand scale of the design had nothing to do with the city that existed. It had everything to do with the city L'Enfant had decided would exist. He was not building for the present. He was making a prediction in stone and dirt. Every city has a street like this, too wide for its neighborhood, built for a future that may or may not have arrived. That was someone's prediction too. The official explanation for strange streets is always the same. Forward-thinking planners, survey errors, natural settling. It sounds reasonable, until the specific cases are examined. Take Boston. Boston has the most confusing street layout in America. Locals joke that you need to have been born there to navigate it. GPS gives up. Streets change names mid-block. Intersections make no geometric sense. The official explanation? Organic growth, no central planning. Streets laid out before the city was organized. True, but incomplete. Most of Boston's streets weren't laid out by planners at all. They follow cowpaths. Literally. The paths that livestock walked from farms to the common pasture in the 1630s were formalized into roads, then paved, then surrounded by a city that had no choice but to accommodate them. The streets that confuse every GPS in Boston are paths that Xianqius walked 400 years ago. Now take Manhattan. Completely different story, rigid grid, perfect logic, every block the same size, except for one street. Broadway, the only diagonal in Manhattan. The street that cuts across the entire island, creating Times Square, Madison Square, and Union Square as it goes. Triangular plazas formed wherever the diagonal meets the grid. The commissioners who designed the Manhattan grid in 1811 couldn't remove Broadway. It was already there. It had been there for centuries. Broadway follows the Wickwasgeck Trail, a path the Lenape people used to travel the length of Manhattan. The Dutch followed it. The English followed it. By 1811, it had buildings on it and couldn't be erased. The most famous street in America is a 400-year-old Native American trail. The grid went around it. That pattern, a street that predates the city around it, that the city couldn't remove, appears everywhere once you know what to look for. In Los Angeles, dozens of diagonal streets follow the routes of the Pacific Electric Railway, the red cars that connected the city before the freeway replaced them. The trains are gone, and the streets remain. The entire Pacific Electric network is encoded in the street grid, visible in the diagonals that cut through neighborhoods built decades after the trains stopped running. In Chicago, Milwaukee Avenue, Devon Avenue, and Lincoln Avenue all cut diagonally across the north side grid, following plank road toll routes built in the 1840s that the city expanded around rather than removed. In dozens of smaller Midwestern cities, wide streets seem absurdly oversized for their neighborhoods, built to move industrial traffic to factories that burned down a century ago. The factory is gone. The road remains. These are what urban historians call scars of anticipation. The physical remains of plans that were made and never completed. Streets platted by land speculators in the 1870s and 1880s through fields that were supposed to become neighborhoods and didn't. Dead ends that were supposed to connect to developments that were never built. Odd angles where one land parcel was sold and subdivided differently than the plat anticipated. But there is one more category that almost nobody knows about, and this one is the strangest. Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania has hundreds of streets that exist legally but don't exist physically. They are called paper streets. They were surveyed, recorded in the county register, given official names, assigned addresses, and never built. Some of them run through the sides of hills. Some of them would require bridges over ravines to be usable. Some of them pass directly through houses that were built decades later by owners who had no idea a street was legally recorded underneath their property. These streets are on the official city map. They have legal status. If the city decided tomorrow to exercise its right-of-way and build them, it could, and the homeowners whose houses sit on top of them would have almost no recourse. In one documented case in Pittsburgh's South Side, a row of houses was built in the 1920s directly on top of a paper street, recorded in 1872. The homeowners discovered this in the 1980s when a developer tried to claim the right-of-way. The legal battle took years. The street had existed on paper for over a century before anyone noticed. Pittsburgh has these streets because of its terrain. The city was platted on hills and ravines that made actual construction difficult or impossible in many areas. Surveyors drew the grid anyway, projecting it over the landscape as if the hills weren't there, and recorded streets that the physical reality made unbuildable. The streets exist. The city is built around them, and somewhere under a neighborhood near you, there may be a street recorded in a county register that nobody has ever walked on. The city grows, routes change, industries disappear, plans are abandoned. But the street grid, once laid, is almost impossible to undo. Property lines are recorded, buildings go up, infrastructure is buried underneath. The original reason for the street disappears, but the street stays, encoded into the city, carrying the ghost of something that no longer exists. Slicing against the grain of the city, these old roots become what one urban historian described as architectural scar tissue, as if the built environment were healing around old wounds. Scar tissue. That is exactly what these streets are. The diagonal street in any neighborhood was probably a railway line, a Native American trail, a plank road toll route, a speculator's grid that never got built, a road to a factory that burned in 1902. The street that doesn't make sense is usually the oldest thing in the neighborhood. This channel follows physical evidence, the streets, the buildings, the infrastructure that shaped the American landscape and then became invisible. The video before this one was about photographs in the archive that don't match what they're supposed to show. The video before that was about federal buildings that cost more than the towns that built them. Every city has a layer of history written into its streets that most people drive over every day without reading. If this is the kind of content you want more of, the subscribe button is right there. And it actually helps the algorithm decide whether to show this to more people who need to hear it. What's the street near you that never made sense? And do you know what it used to be? Drop it in the comments. I want to start mapping these.